Well, it was just a century ago that scientists discovering the Milky Way wasn't the entire universe. They had thought so, learning instead that it's just a tiny part of our ever expanding actual universe. Here to tell us
The
more about
actual
it, yeah,
universe.
is Eddie Whistler. He's going to do an upcoming discussion on this at the Planetarium at the Museum of Science and History. Good morning, Eddie.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, the name of it is Storms of Stars.
Storms of stars, and I'm curious, like, why the metaphor of the storm?
It's so perfect. Um, I'm sure I'm not the first one to have thought about it, but I feel like I independently came up with it, looking at the thing, being like, that's a hurricane. And people who come in a lot of times get caught up and just have a misunderstanding or no understanding of what a galaxy is. And so raindrops are to hurricanes, and they even look like these spiral structures that are really majestic and amazing. As devastating as a hurricane is, when you see the pictures from space, like these things, they look amazing.
Mm.
And so are galaxies, and so stars are to galaxies what raindrops are to hurricanes, and not exactly in the same numbers, but man, there are a lot of stars in galaxies.
Some of the, telescope images really are just unbelievable because there's almost no sort of sky or, or background. It's just all glinting stars.
Yeah, and, so are you referencing the images that we have of, like, deep field space where then these
Mm.
storms of galaxies, we see them by the thousands?
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at like beautiful Hubble photos, right?
So it's all over the place. So a single galaxy is made up of just massive amounts of stars, so much so that oftentimes you almost can't make out a single one. They're almost like it's almost like, a work of art made of chalk. You don't see individual little chalk dust grains,
Hmm.
and yet you know that that's what chalk is when you lay it down, on a piece of black paper, let's say. You're looking at a picture from Hubble, and you know that it's made up of individual stars, but you can't make out a single one.
Galaxies can actually be, I mean, you can sort of compare them to a hurricane, but they can be shaped in a variety of ways.
True.
Like, you describe to us what those shapes are and what significance that has in the way that they operate.
Yeah, so many that are in our matters how far away it is from us, because the further we look out, the deeper in time we look. So shapes are adjusted because they're younger and they're part of a younger universe, and they haven't been able to mature because the universe is less mature the further out we look. So that's one thing that can kind of govern the shape of a galaxy. And less mature, you could always unpack that to know what that is. But other than that, there are also interactions between galaxies, because these aren't just isolated things. They're interacting with one another over the course of billions of years. And the interaction gravitationally between galaxies can pull stars out, can, in some cases, really mess about the shapes, like complete chaos and destruction, and just stars spilling out into intergalactic space. And then you have, more or less roughly isolated galaxies that are doing their own thing, looking like spirals. Really big ones look like elliptical egg-like collections of stars. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that galaxies can be, but the majority of them in the neighborhood of us are spiral shaped galaxies spinning around looking as beautiful as they do.
I mean, learning that we weren't the center of the universe must have been a really profound scientific revelation,
Yeah,
and I imagine was very difficult for a lot of people to comprehend. I mean, space is hard to comprehend.
no doubt. And that happened about 100 years ago. A mere 100 years ago. We know so much about the galaxies, and of course, there are tremendous mysteries as well. We're using the galaxies to kind of currently try and understand the cosmos on the large scale. We can get into that, but maybe some other time. But yes, 100 years ago, we used to think that the universe was the Milky Way galaxy, and it took a discovery by Edwin Hubble. Of course, the telescope is named after this person, um, to show us, for the very first time, we now know, oh, the universe is not just our galaxy, which is already an amazingly big thing. The moment that we saw that the Andromeda cloud in the sky, that we weren't sure if it was just a dusty cloud in space in our own galaxy, we proved, as much as you could prove something in science, you don't really, but boom, that thing, oh, that is a separate galaxy. And they got to calling them island universes,
Oh, wow.
which is a really cool term.
That sounds exotic. This is a subject of the aptly titled Storm of Stars session that you're going to be doing on May 21st. And this is something that is going to have, obviously video elements and digital elements. And so all that we're
Yes.
talking about, but also pictured and more thoroughly described.
Yes, for sure. So, trying to set the scene with music and audio and visual in a dark room with a 60-foot dome overhead. Now, it is worth mentioning that this is for audiences 55 and up, and it's happening during the daytime.
Yeah.
But we have other series events that are for 13 and up and take place in the evening.
More information can be found at mosh.org.
Come on,
All
bring it.
right.
Come check us out.
Eddie Whisler, it's always so fun to talk to you about space and space things. Thanks for doing this.
Super welcome.
All right.